this weekend's project is we're going to be doing some work to the cooling system here. We'll open up the hood, show you what we're talking about. First off, we see that we don't have any coolant in our overflow jug. Not a good sign, not a good thing. But we get to the root of the problem. We have a leak in our water pump here. We could tell because when we got underneath, we could see that it was dripping from the bottom of the water pump, and you can see that leak. In addition to that water pump, you can see that the radiator is in bad shape here. It's kind of rotted out and it's not looking good. So we're gonna change the radiator and the water pump. But the first thing we got to do is remove the skid plate, and then we got to find the petcock on the bottom of the radiator so that we can drain the radiator. That skid plate there was just 4 bolts, 2 on each side here. They're 17 mil, at least in my case. So drop that down, take those bolts out. You see over here on this side, the idea is that instead of this falling on your face, you just loosen those 2 up and they kind of still support it. And then you would remove these 2, and then you would just push it that way, drop it down, and get it out of there. If you look there, you can see the discoloring, and that was where we had evidence of the leak. That might be a better look there. And then you could see it dripping off of the bottom of the harmonic balancer. So to get that serpentine belt off there, this is 15 millimeter, just used a socket and ratchet with extension if you needed to, which is just basically a pipe over the handle. You're gonna turn it clockwise and then move this to get the tension off the belt, remove your belt. If you don't have a sticker on here that shows you the orientation of the belt, might be a good idea just to draw a rough sketch before you take that off, so you know which way it goes back on when you have to reinstall it. So now with our fan here, that threads on to the shiv for the water pump. And what I got going on here is I just got that strap wrench around the shiv, and then as I turn this up, it hits against this one here, and then hopefully the tension on this rubber strap will hold the shiv tight enough that I can get the nut loose here. I just got a modified wrench. I don't know what size this is. It's roughly about 1 3/8 inches. It's likely some kind of metric size that I don't have, but anyway, I modified this wrench and then I fit that on there. Give that a crack, snap this loose, and then you can thread off the fan there. Down in the corners where the petcock is, that's what will open up to drain the fluid out. You can connect a hose on there, run that hose to some kind of catch basin to collect all the antifreeze, and we will drain the system. Over on this side here, we have our lower rad hose, and then there, right here is one, and there's the 2. Those are the 2 connections for our tranny cooler. Have an interesting circumstance here. We were trying to drain this radiator and it's not really draining. We got some fluid in the bucket there. We opened up our top hose, help have that drain down, and then we ended up removing it all together, disconnected it from here, and then we disconnected it over there. So we have our fluid in there. We can expect that because I guess the thermostat would be closed, so that seems normal. I put a screwdriver in here to open that up at the top, and you could hear some gurgling action going on, so we entered some air into the system to help drain it, but we aren't getting any more drain action over there in the tub. So I think what's going to happen here is when we remove this lower rad hose, we're gonna have a bit of a mess coming both from the engine and from the radiator. I suspect the condition of the radiator has caused a blockage where we don't have flow or minimal flow. This is where we're at. We still have to drain the system before we can proceed. Continuing on with the disassembly here, first what we did was we took off the AC compressor right there, and that's going to be 13 mil. So there's 4 on the compressor, and then there's 1 right there for the bracket. That bolt ends up being right there. So that takes care of the compressor, and we had to disconnect this, and we also had to disconnect our throttle cable from here. So we disconnected the throttle cable because that went in through our piping. So we had to remove that so we could lift that up from there, and we're just setting it on top out of the way. Next was our alternator. I do believe this is a 15 mil on the top, and then we had a 13 for this here. We take this nut off. So we had a 13 for the top nut, and then we take that off, and then you get down, that's another 15 mil, I do believe, to just loosen this stud. All we want to do is loosen that off of there, and that was connected to up here. And then we have two 15 mil bolts, one here, one here. There's the bottom one that goes there. This top bolt here will go there. And we've left the alternator hooked up. We just lift it up, put it out of the way as well. Next we have the power steering pump here, and that's just going to be these 3 bolts here, which is a 13 millimeter. You'll turn your pulley to get your socket and extension in there to grab the heads of those bolts. Those 3 are bolted right there, 1, 2, and 3. Take that off. I just set it off to the side here. In order to do that, I had to remove the top part of the air cleaner there. You're gonna have to remove this idler, which goes right there, because in behind that is one of the bolts there. So these are all 15 millimeter, including the idler there. The bolts to remove this bracket here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and for that one there, because this pipe is kind of in your way, you're not going to be able to get at that. I just use a short little ratchet wrench, get it in there, break it loose. Once it's loose, then you can hopefully get it out by hand. Water pump removal here, what we got is there's going to be a pinch clamp. So we just remove that pinch clamp there off of the hose, disconnect it there. We have this fastener on the side of the tappet cover that holds the bracket there. That's a 7/16. Coming down, this is just going to break free with an O-ring here. We got our 2 gear clamps, likely a 5/16 socket or flathead wrench to break those free. All these bolts here, so we got 3 along the top, this one, 5, and then 2 on the bottom, 6, 7 bolts, so should all be 9/16. Remove all of those, and then this thing should pull right off of there. To remove the top rad support here, we got a bunch of stuff we got to take off. So this is the latch for the hood, and that just goes along there, and then there's going to be 2 nuts that hold that on. Those I do believe are going to be 13 millimeter. As well on the top here, you got 1, 2, those are from the radiator itself. Those are going to be again, I think those are 13 millimeter. And then on the ends here, we've got 2 there. Those are going to be 10 mil. So the grill support here, there's 1 there, and there's another one there. Those are going to be 10 mil. Again, on this side, you're going to have 2 here. Those are going to be 10 mil. When we get under here, there is a bolt there and another one there. Those are going to be 10 mil as well. For the grill itself, there should be 2 screws on top, another 2, 1 there and 1 there. You remove those 4 screws to pull the grill out, then you got access to remove all these other things. In removing the radiator there, I thought I had to remove my front bumper. Thought there were some fasteners on the bottom of the radiator that I had to disconnect, so that's why I removed the bumper to get at those. There aren't any fasteners down there, but there's an adhesive strip on both sides here and here where the air conditioning condenser is kind of fastened to it. That was on there pretty good, had to work to get it out, so it did help removing the bumper to get that apart. There was 2 fasteners here, one there, both 10 mil. You remove those were the 2 that connect condenser to the radiator, and as you can see, there's 1 here and 1 there. After removing those 2 fasteners and breaking that adhesive strip on both sides, then you can separate the radiator from the condenser, and it should pull straight up. And then the last thing is there's a hose right here that connects to the top of the radiator. That hose is right here. This is the hose that goes to our overflow jug over there. As you can see down in there, that's going to give us some more room to get our puller on there to pull that harmonic balancer off. Once that's off, there's a few more bolts left to take out, and then we should be able to get this timing chain cover off. So we got the harmonic balancer off there. First thing, you want to remove the shiv. Those are 1/2-inch bolts, so you remove them 1/2-inch bolts. I'm using this style puller here. Those 3 bolts will thread into the holes for the shiv, and then it's got the center piece, and then it just uses a ratchet on to go on the end there, and then that just slowly comes out. On this end, it's got that shaft saver end on there, so it's not going to damage anything as it pulls like it pushes off of the crankshaft to pull this off. And then you see in here, it looks like there's a sleeve on there. So be prepared that you're going to have some more antifreeze come out of these holes as you loosen or remove these bolts here. You're going to have 2 on this side, should be a 9/16. You should have another 2 on this side, 9/16, and then 2 on the bottom, and that's from the oil pan to the bottom of the timing chain cover, and those should be 1/2-inch. Those should be 1/2-inch socket to remove those 2 bolts there. And then here's our thermostat here. It doesn't look too bad, but what we could do is we could throw that into a metal cup and heat up the water and see if we can see that operating correctly at boiling temperature. I wanted to do this first because this neck was full of fluid. I wanted to take that off first and kind of drained all that fluid off there first before we take this timing chain cover off. I've made mention in other videos before where it was actually on a small block Dodge where I got these 2 bolts mixed up, and the length of them wasn't very much different. I don't know if it was a 1/4 inch, 1/8 of an inch. It wasn't very much, but what ended up happening when I mixed those 2 bolts up, it ended up hitting the number 1 cylinder bore and popping a perfect little hole through the bore. The next thing you know, I had antifreeze and the oil all mixed together. Ever since then, I would like to make sure, like take extra care to make sure that I put the bolts back where they came from. Now, in this case, if we take a look here, these are the same length, so I wouldn't have that problem in this case. And even if we got this one on this side mixed up, they all have the same depth. But it's a haunting thing for me because that was a hell of a way to wreck an engine over 1 little bolt. After that little interlude, these are the bolts that are left. You got the 2 for your oil pan on the bottom, and then you got these 4 on the bottom. Those the bottom one should be 1/2-inch socket. Those other ones should be a deep 9/16 to remove those, and then that finishes it off so we can get the timing chain cover off. Before we remove this timing chain set, we're gonna check it out. We already know that it needs to be replaced because of how loose the chain is. That's obvious, we can see that. So I just got a manual here, and this is the instructions in the manual, and it basically says, as it's highlighted here, is that you want to get it to top dead center, and then you want to use a torque wrench, and you want to apply 30 foot-pounds and see what the deflection in the chain is. Anything over 1/8 of an inch means that it's going to need to be replaced, and if you're replacing it, they're suggesting you use a whole set, which is both the sprockets and the chain. Now, this is the torque wrench we got on here. We're turning that until the needle hits 30 on there, and then we stop, and that gives us our deflection. So what I did was I marked it at top dead center, and then I've moved it, and then I've made another mark, and then I've measured in between the 2 marks there. As we look at the ruler here, we're looking at, looks to me like it's roughly about 3/16. So it's over our 1/8 of an inch. You could, if you want, you just get another factory replacement chain, you replace the timing set, and you're done. In my case, is I've got, it's an adjustable timing set here, and so it has 3 adjustments on here. So you can either go retarded, factory, or advanced. And me, I'm looking for this part here where it says advancing the timing will increase the low end torque. That's what I'm interested in. And then when we look at this part here, it says to advance the camshaft timing, use the triangle timing mark on the crank sprocket and the advanced keyway shown above. You're going to line up your triangle with this mark here, and then you're going to use that keyway. This keyway corresponds with the triangle. It might be hard to focus, but basically there's a pointy end there which represents the triangle. This is what we're doing to set it up for advance. Now, we could just stop there and continue forward, but I'm just going to throw a little extra theory at you. First of all, some people might ask, can you advance the timing on a Magnum engine because it's computer controlled? Good question. Here's my answer. So right now, as we take a look here, this thing, the chain is stretched. When it's stretched, it's stretched and it's moved it counterclockwise. Counterclockwise on the cam sprocket is equal to counterclockwise on the crank sprocket. And that is the same as advancing the timing with this timing set here. If I was to put numbers to it, I think for every 16th on our measurement, I think that's going to equate to, I'm just going to throw a number in there, but I think that's going to equate to maybe 2 degrees. So 2 degrees times 3, because we had measured 3/16, and I'm going to say 1/16 equals 2 degrees. So then that means we're 6 degrees out. Basically what I'm saying right now is the engine is advanced right now with a loose timing chain, and by me advancing it with the timing chain set, I'm not changing anything. It's the exact running condition of the engine right now. So here is our crank gear. Now, I just want to kind of illustrate what I'm talking about just with this gear. That's the circle, and the circle is supposed to be the factory timing, and that's represented with this keyway, which is rounded. Now, when we put that there, these timing gears should line up, because this is right up beside the factory set. If we take a look in here, it does look like this one lines up with this one. So that makes sense. Now, if I want to advance it like I suggested, I'm going to use the triangle. That is represented with the pointy end of the keyway there. So triangle and this. Triangle lines up. This triangle is supposed to line up to that dot. So now, if we take a look, you can see how the tooth is just shifted over, just a little bit. Clockwise rotation, advanced. Now, if we take it and we go to this one here with the square, so the square and the square end keyway, that's represents retarded. Now, we take a look and we see that this tooth is now on the other side of the factory one. So that represents with this sprocket the difference in the timing and how much it changes sprocket to sprocket. If we go back to what I was saying, I want to go to the triangle. If we go back to the triangle, you can see where my tooth is going to be shifted over. Now I'm just throwing this out there, but if you take a look at the distance of maybe the width of that tooth, right? If it touched the edge of that tooth and you just moved it over that much, that's not much far off from what we got up here. It is less, right? So I think, like I said before with my numbers, I think that what I'll be doing is advancing this by a total of 4 degrees as per the adjustable timing set says. But I think right now I'm advanced at 6 degrees. Going to install the timing set now. We just soak that chain in some oil, lubricate it before we install it there so it doesn't run dry on startup. And what we got going on, as we said before, is we've got our triangle, and that is going to line up with our timing mark on there. So we're going to set it on this cardboard here, get it situated, ready to go, and then we're going to install that on the engine. I've installed the adjustable timing set. We advanced that by 4 degrees as per the instructions in the set, and we put the timing chain cover on and the harmonic balancer, just temporary here. I got a couple bolts in the bottom holding that together, and we just got this started on the keyway Not all the way, because then I'd have to pull it back off again with the puller, but we just got it started on the keyway so that everything lines up and we can check our marks here. So those are the marks that we have on the timing cover, and then these are the marks on the harmonic balancer. There's top dead center, and then if you look, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I just got this piece here. We're going to stick in the slot, and we're going to line that up. As you can see, if we look on this side, we see 3 marks, and we look on that side, it looks like it's just touching the 5. So we're on 4 degrees, which checks out with our timing set. And if this is top dead center, and it's before top dead center, and advanced is opening up the valves before top dead center, that all checks out.